Hey guys, today's guest is helping expose one of the greatest silent epidemics of our modern world. You guessed it, brains hijacked by unhealthy dopamine loops from our screens. Dr. Trish Leigh is a best-selling author and cognitive neuroscientist who helps people understand how excess screen stimulation is reshaping the brain, our nervous system, our focus, relationships, even intimacy, from ADHD and anxiety to arousal dysfunction. This woman goes deep. We get all the juice on not only what's happening in your brain, but how to fix it, how to rewire it. And it's actually more simple than you think. Let's meet Dr. Trish Leigh. All right, Trish, you just flew in from North Carolina.
Yes.
Super excited to
Yes.
have you. The topic we're going to talk about is one of the most important topics, in my opinion, for our culture right now. And that topic is unhealthy dopamine.
Yes.
So everybody that is listening to this show is going to have something that they can connect with. And when I was talking to you in the kitchen before we started, I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is a wealth of knowledge. You just get it. So I'm excited to dive into because we can all shame ourselves and like, oh, I shouldn't do this. I need to be doing that. But how do we practically shift and actually change our brain chemistry so that we're more focused on our purpose and not addicted to the quick dopamine hits of pleasure?
Yes, I love it. And that is the question at hand right now, right?
I think everyone's asking this question.
And if they're not, honestly, they should be. And
Yeah.
it's become, an epidemic proportions. Everybody has their phone in their pocket. Just about everybody feels compelled to reach for their phone, even though they don't need to. Like, I think people understand that feeling,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like,
I
you
do.
sit down to talk to your friend, and instead it's like you feel the pull to your phone. So, this is, I think it's at a critical mass. What people don't understand is how much it is miswiring their brains and impacting anxiety, attention, and arousal dysfunction. People's libidos are tanking in terms of adults because their brains are strained from constant phone use and they don't understand the mechanisms. And once you understand it, you're incredibly empowered to, take the control back. Years ago, I said the phrase, control your brain or it'll control you, like one time in a video. And then now it's become my, my outro type of thing. But I believe it. If you are not intentional, your brain will derail you into a life that is not your full potential. I want people to self-actualize and become the best version of themselves.
Yes, please. Well, I noticed that when I don't have my phone with me, that's when my brain's more creative. When I get out into nature, it's like I start to get these ideas, the juices start flowing. When I'm focused like so much in this like myopic space of my phone, I'm watching someone else's ideas, their life. I'm thinking, I should do that. I needed to be doing this or that. And it's outside of my actual unique blueprint of my gifts that God's given me and the things that I was created here to do. And when I am in my purpose, that's where I find the deepest amount of satisfaction, joy, and not just quick dopamine pleasure.
Yeah, and you just touched upon something that is crucial for, culture and society, but individuals, is that phone use is fragmenting people's identity, their very identity. And I see identity as divinely inspired, as innate, coming from within. But if you're always in front of your phone, passively consuming whatever comes up in front of you, you don't have enough quiet to be able to tap in and to realize what's important to you fundamentally, and then go out and have the courage to chase it down.
Ooh, that's deep right there. That's important. Yes. So okay, first of all, I would love for you to share with the audience what makes you an expert on dopamine and unhealthy dopamine and screen time and how it impacts us.
Sure. So I am a cognitive neuroscientist. What that entails is I have a global practice. It's all online. I have the unique perspective of being able to use technology to see how people's brains perform. It's called EEG, electroencephalogram. Most people know about EKG, that reads how their heart is performing. I have my own app and a wearable, a headband technology that I can read how people's brains perform. So I can see the dysfunction that is being caused by phone and screen use. And you mentioned it before, actually. You mentioned many of the mechanisms at play without even knowing that you mentioned.
Really?
Yeah. So there's dopamine dependency. Screens are what are considered supernormal stimuli. When you're scrolling, it's a seeking behavior. Any scrolling kind of hunting behavior is a pursuit behavior. Dopamine is actually the molecule of pursuit of pleasure, not necessarily pleasure. It links your brain. So I've been studying it. I have completed a scientific study on pornography addiction that is at the top of the supernormal stimuli. So I have a practice, I do studies, I love thinking about how our actual lives can be improved through the wonder of neuroplasticity.
Okay.
And I practice it myself. I really do walk the walk of the talk. And I have 5 children. So I am constantly co regulating them. And I've taught them how to use their screens well too.
I love that. So I am excited in this conversation to be able to learn how we can understand our brain better and then tools of how we can upgrade and use our brain to create the life that we desire as opposed to feeling like a victim or we're led by our phones and we're losing our time and we're wasting time and oh my gosh, look at all this time that's passed and I was just sitting here scrolling
Yes.
instead of doing the things that I really want to do.
Yes. And that is the personal transformation journey that is available to anybody who wants to take the journey.
Okay.
And my hope is to inspire people to want to. And just like you said, through understanding the neural mechanisms, which are very simple once we start breaking them down. And then, of course, through practical, pragmatic steps that people can take today, right? We have to demystify this for people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm hoping that we can do together.
Let's do it. And we'll get into what you specialize in as well as porn, because I think you said something a crazy stat that over 95% of
Mhm.
men are
Mhm.
addicted to porn.
Yeah. I don't love to use the word addicted.
Okay.
I think addicted's a loaded word. And I'll tell you why. It's because either people don't relate to it at all, or they relate very heavily and then they think they can never overcome it. So I prefer to use the word compulsion. It's considered a compulsive sexual behavior disorder. So it's recognized by the World Health Organization. It's at the top of the supernormal stimuli. The way I like to think about that, like let's dive into some easy ideas for people to understand. Any real life activity that you go and enjoy in the real world, it exists on a 1 to 10 scale.
Okay.
So any activity in your phone is an 11 plus activity,
Really?
super normal stimuli.
Okay.
So even on social media, when you're scrolling, that's an 11. It's giving your brain higher levels of dopamine.
Yeah.
It's considered fast dopamine instead of slow dopamine. So, there's a lot happening there,
So
but it's
there's
derailing
nothing
people.
above a 10, even like the best orgasm in the world when you're actually connected with another human.
No, and I'll tell you why, is that unless you're really aggressively trying to squeeze all the pleasure out, and those are people who are looking for an 11 plus, is that I call it the happiness trifecta when there's healthy levels of dopamine, but it's combined with serotonin for joy and
Okay.
oxytocin for connection. So people lose sight of this. They think of I think of it as a sexual experience. Many men think of it as a performance. If you listen to people talk about it, and many men have become hypersexualized because of pornography. So even they enter into a sexual experience in an objectified way to try to get all the dopamine out of it. So, in a healthy way, and what we're talking about here is healthy self regulation and also healthy sexuality. In a healthy way, it's on a 10. And, we'll call it a 9. I always joke like, sexuality with your partner is a 9 unless like your girlfriend's mad at you. Then it's like a 4, right? Because it does matter your baseline arousal. But like skydiving's a 9.5, right? You go skydiving, you get the adrenaline rush, the dopamine's flowing.
Yeah.
There's a scale in real world dopamine too.
So I'm sure the people listening to this, and I'm thinking this myself, all right, so if real life only gives us a 1 to a 10 max and surreal things like our phone give us 11 plus, why would we choose real life?
People don't. That's what's happening. People have stopped to stop choosing real life. But it's all artificial, right? Like the phone's all an unreality. It's fantasy. So we really are we are in the first time ever in the modern world of overstimulation.
Yeah.
This is the first time this has happened. We're in an experiment. And I really hope that people become, top 5% people. That's what I consider the people in my program to be top 1% people because they've chosen early on, they're early adopters to interact with their technology differently.
Okay.
But that's what's happening. So people are having difficulty on a neurological level choosing their work, their relationships, and their hobbies. They're stopping doing it. They're not doing it anymore.
Yeah, it's like, why do it if I can get so much pleasure out of living this surreal
Yeah,
fantasy
and it's
world?
instant gratification. I
Yeah.
push a button and I
I
get
don't have to work
11.
for it.
I don't have to work for
I don't
it.
have to have the difficult conversations.
Yep.
I don't need to show up early for work.
Uh-huh.
I don't need to have the pain in the gym. I can just
Yep.
live in this
Yeah,
fantasy.
gyms are great. I always tell people go to the gym. The gym is one of the highest producing dopamine activities you can do. Go get a great workout, right? After a great workout, how do you feel?
Amazing.
Alive. You feel
Yeah.
alive. If you felt terrible before, you feel
Yeah.
energized. That's a perfect example, but you got to work for it, right?
Okay.
And we're in the age where people are just too comfortable being comfortable.
Yeah.
People have lost the ability to persevere and tolerate discomfort.
That's a big one right now because we are so conditioned with comfort. It's like everything's comfortable. You've got a comfortable couch or a comfortable bed to lay in. You're scrolling. Oh, I'm hungry. Let me press a button and get some Uber Eats.
Uh-huh.
Let me call someone to come to my house for a massage. Whatever. It doesn't
Easy
matter. You
button
can just
lifestyle.
click a
Mhm.
button and you have, I mean, I'm going to get on Amazon. I could have something in an hour.
Yep.
So let's talk about real world, how we get back into the real world and make that something that feels rewarding, that we're excited about again, that we want more than the fantasy world.
Yes. So it requires an unwire from the high levels of dopamine, which the unwire basically is a digital dopamine detox. And I encourage all of your viewers to think about what is their particular dopamine hijack. It's different for all people. Some people it's shopping, some people it's food, some people it's sexuality, some people it's gambling. So, really think to yourself like, what is my dopamine hijack?
Okay.
Then that's self awareness. Then it's about staying away from that, moderating the healthier, and we can dive into that, healthier screen-based activities, um, getting rid of the very high ones like pornography. There's, in my mind, and science basically supports there's no way to have a healthy porn habit because it's so high of a dopamine activity, but then to dopamine stack in their real life. At the outset of this journey, dopamine stacking is write a giant list of all the things that you love to do and then go do them. Because so many people don't. On the intake form in my practice, there's two questions. How do you express your creativity and what do you do for fun? And guess what people write the vast majority of the times? NA, non
Really?
applicable.
Really? They don't even know anymore.
They don't know. And then I ask them when we talk, I say, what do you love to do? And then they say, I love to play the violin. And I'll say, when's the last time you played the violin? 10 years ago, right?
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, now they're just watching people play the violin
They
on
are.
social media
That's
or
exactly
something.
right.
Okay, so you are helping people get back into the real world, but I'm still not sold on why anyone would like want to choose that, right? Because it's so hard to, for example, relationships with family, with your partner, with friends, like there's difficult conversations that come up. There's showing up. There's the real life doing, right? So what are people going to, how do we condition the brain to want that again? Like, tell us step by step how we go into that.
Okay, so first and foremost, in my book, I have a book, Mind Over Explicit Matter. In my book, I talk about the evolutionary aspect of humanity, right? Humans are actually biologically wired to be in a tribe, to want to have a partner,
Mm-hmm.
to want to be on purpose, and to be creative. Our natural wiring is to do all of the wonderful things in the world, even to deal with all the difficult things.
Yeah.
That is our natural wiring.
Yeah.
So that's why I call it a miswiring. The phone is miswiring people to not see that. When you step away from the screen, and you've probably had this experience, right? If you're on a hike, you've had the experience like, wow, I just feel a lot better. Like the sky's gorgeous, the breeze feels good. Maybe I'll call my brother. So those are the things that pop in when we dial down the noise from social media in particular. So people want it, they inherently want it, but their minds are too busy in the passive consumption. That's why I want to create awareness, and I want to remind people that there is full potential in there. People lose hope. I've talked to too many people who lose hope. I want people to know they can have the life that they want and that they deserve, and that their phone and their digital practices are holding them back.
Yeah. So we need to learn how to step out of that. But first, we want to understand our brain. And as you're saying that, what was coming to mind for me is when you're talking about the hike, it's like a hike usually has like an arc to it, kind of like a movie where it starts out easy, it gets real difficult, and then in the end, you're like, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. I experienced all these awesome things. You have the endorphins flowing through you, but you wouldn't have enjoyed it as much if you didn't go through that arc of the difficulty and experience the high and the low together. When we're getting these cheap dopamine hits from the phone, it's just kind of like a blah. It's like, yes, it's like dopamine is the anticipation molecule,
Yes, it
right?
is.
So
Yes,
it's
it is.
anticipating what's next, what's
Yep.
next, what's next. I want, I want,
Uh-huh.
I want.
Maybe there's a reward.
Maybe
Yes.
there's a
Uh-huh.
reward, and most of the time it's really not. It's more
Mhm.
cheap dopamine
It
because
is.
it's anticipating that something good's
Oh
going
yeah,
to
the
happen.
finish line's always
It's
brought
always
out
what's
further.
there. It's not like in real life how, yes, it's going to be tough.
Mhm.
But if we can have in our mind, like, this is part of it, if
Mhm.
I can just be in it
Yes, the
and
hero's
feel
journey,
it.
the hero's journey. And everybody wants to be the hero in their own life. They do. And that's what I want to remind people. You are the hero in your own life. If you have a life that you don't love, you're accidentally making that life,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't say create. I said making.
Yeah.
You're on your phone. You're going with the flow of what life throws at you. To For the hero, he's very intentional, right? To have the hero's journey, you have to be really intentional on how you move through the world. And I walk the walk on that. I always create goals for myself,
Okay.
objectives under those goals, but that requires your prefrontal cortex to work. We know from scientific studies that what screens are doing is basically knocking out function in the prefrontal cortex, which is in charge of attention, focus, working memory, judgment, impulse control, socialization, executive function, planning and organization.
Okay.
So I can tell all your viewers, make a plan and set yourself out on a mission and go on your hero's journey, but they won't be able to. Their frontal lobes are not working from the screen. That's why unwiring from the screen is the first step.
Okay.
Rewiring the brain back towards the optimal performance pattern. It's necessary to be able to be the hero in your own life.
Okay, so I want you to walk us through how we unwire it because this is such a huge thing. I just had a conversation with my brother who was addicted to heroin and meth, and he taught me something that I will never forget. It's the first time he had that hit of heroin and it went into his bloodstream. He said it was the most euphoric feeling he's ever had in his entire life. He says nothing can touch it, being the most in love, having the best orgasm, the best food, the best experience. Nothing could even, like, if that was a 1 to 10, this was a 10,000.
Yes.
And he said his whole journey as an addict or what you like, what did you call it instead of addiction?
It's
Compulsion,
compulsion.
was chasing the dragon, he calls it. It's like just trying to get that feeling again, and he could never, it was always just a little lower, a little lower, a little lower. It was never like that high that it was, and so they keep upping the dose to get there.
Yep.
And now
When was the first time he used heroin? How old was he?
he was in his early 20s.
So the same thing's happening with phones. But actually, it's been, there are studies that and scientists out there that say, and if you look it up, you'll see it online, like your brain on screens, your brain on heroin, where it's being compared to a brain on heroin.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's affecting much more people. And the idea behind it
And
is
it's socially acceptable.
It's socially acceptable, and it's 8-year-olds.
Yeah.
That first exposure, that rush, that's what happens with pornography. And many of the people, most of the people I work with, they can tell you about that rush, just like your brother explained it.
The first time they were exposed to
Yes,
porn.
the first time they were exposed to porn, their dopamine receptors in their brain lit up. Heroin's a little different because you're also dealing with a substance, right?
Yeah.
So the substance is changing your mood and it's regulating you in a different way. Pornography or screens, they're behavioral compulsions or addictions. So it is the dopamine mechanism in and of itself that is changing the person's brain and then hooking them on the dopamine, not the substance. It's a behavioral addiction is what it's classified as. But the rush is the same. So, thousands of men have told me, they know the story. They can tell the story just like your brother. First time I saw porn, I felt this way. I was lit up. My brain was on fire. I call that the seeds of addiction and I do use the word addiction when I'm talking about this. So we have 8-year-olds now that are, seeing porn for the first time, whether they like it or not. It has nothing to do with sex. So we have to just qualify that out of the gates. And so their brain lit up because of the dopamine. The second time you go back, your brain already needs more dopamine. The homeostasis in the nervous system has changed to need more dopamine. And then if you go back with consistency, frequency, you're basically watering those seeds, building tolerance, which leads to escalation. And just like your brother talked about, then people need more and more and more. So the same thing's happening with screens and social media in particular. I have one client who recently said, Dr. Trish, TikTok can read my mind. I'm like, no, TikTok is not reading your mind. TikTok is reading your eye gaze and your scroll rate.
Yeah.
So,
Your patterns.
when you stop on a particular body part, that's what was happening to him. And a particular scenario, doesn't matter. It could be cat videos. The algorithms know that's what you like, and they'll serve you more at the same dopamine level. But then a little while later, you know what they do, right? They serve you a similar but higher dopamine hit.
Okay.
That's how they keep you hooked. So if you are watching, a cat laying around video, a little bit later you get a cat jumping around video.
Yeah.
And
oh, interesting.
so now you've got,
because they know how the brain works.
they know.
We want
They
more.
know.
We want more.
Yep,
more
and that's how they
more.
keep you hooked through tolerance building and escalation.
So that's interesting because it makes me think about how there's so much, like in San Diego, we live in one of the highest, sex trafficking areas because we're right next to Mexico. And I think about it and I'm like, how do people get involved in that? Because I really believe in my heart, no baby comes into this world thinking, I want to be, someone that sells children, right? And how do you get from being a child to that person? I don't like to say that person like I'm stereotyping them, but a person that is going to choose that. And that's what's making me think about is this escalation of the exposure to this, the exposure to that. And then next, it just to that person probably seems like, I'm sure there's something in their soul that knows it's not right.
There is significant dysregulation in that person's nervous system. The more dysregulated you are, the lower your self-awareness is. So that's an extreme example, but
that's really powerful.
It is really powerful.
Say that again.
Yeah. So people who, and I would contend it becomes not even a choice, actually. So when a person is willing to traffic another human being, that is incredible nervous system dysregulation. the more dysregulated your brain and your nervous system are,
Mm.
the less self-awareness you have about it. And for you and for me, it even shows up as stress. I'm sure you've had this experience. The more stressed out you are, you start doing things you wouldn't
You put
do.
your keys somewhere and you're like,
Exactly.
where did I put
Uh-huh.
those? Oh, I just, I did this and I didn't even realize. I
Or
had a
you, or
friend
you,
who the
you might
car rolled
even,
over
you
her.
might even make a business decision, and like 3 weeks later, like, why did I ever do that?
Yeah.
And then you look back and it's like, oh, I was like 3 times busier than I normally am,
Mm-hmm.
which ramped up your nervous system. It dysregulated you more. And you decided, painting the whole studio bright purple was a brilliant idea. But then you take a step back when you're more regulated and you're like, oh, yeah, I missed the mark on the bright
You were
purple thing.
hijacked.
You're hijacked in the moment. Yeah.
Or like in a conversation when you're feeling emotional and you're hijacked, you may say
Mhm.
things that you look back and you're like, I
Mhm.
wish I wouldn't have said that,
Yes,
or I could
yes.
have said that
All
better.
dysregulation. And when it
Okay.
comes to people who are willing to traffic, it becomes so distorted. And a lot of the clients I work with, they're on like the kind of the lower end of the continuum with this conversation, but they lose sight of the people as human beings. They are now objects to them, right? We know that trafficking is directly related to pornography consumption. There's many nonprofit organizations that I have collaborated with that have made that connection, and they collaborate with me honestly because if we stop having people consume pornography, the need for people who are trafficked goes down. It's a direct one-to-one
Wow,
correlation
that's a way
because
to help stop child
it
trafficking.
really is. And
Oh,
and
okay.
I'll
Or
tell you
human
why
trafficking.
is yeah, I'll tell you why is because people want to experience what they've seen in pornography with a human being, and no emotionally intelligent partner wants to experience the violence or the degradation or whatever. So that is with the people that I work with, when they begin to not necessarily traffic people, but if they use escorts or infidelity, it's on the upper end of escalation. I've seen all this. Now I want to go do it.
One of my favorite things to do when I prep for the gym is to get my blood moving. And the way that I do that is by reducing inflammation and adding some nitric oxide to my blood. I love HydroShot. Not only does it taste delicious, but it has hydrogen gas infused into the can, as well as natural occurring nitric oxide from watermelon rind with green tea, and it's 0 calories. That's actually scary. You were telling me a story about a client that you have that did something
Mhm.
crazy in real life.
Mhm.
And then when his brain wasn't hijacked anymore, he's like, oh my gosh, now I see how that was weird.
Yes.
But in the moment, he didn't.
It made perfect sense. And I've heard that same story from hundreds of people on all different levels. It's basically the idea of this is how it plays out in a porn scene. They lose sight of it doesn't play out like that.
Yeah.
Actually one time my hair was really wavy and in one of my videos, and someone's like, "Oh, Dr. Trish, you look like the pizza boy just took you under your desk." I'm like, "My friend, that doesn't happen in real life." You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like just the just the scene that was like messy hair equaled that
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
It's the exposure.
it's the exposure and the reinforcement at a neurological level.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about how we rewire. Let's get
Mhm.
to the juicy part.
Mhm.
So we all understand and everyone can agree this is a problem.
Mhm.
It's something that not only can hijack our life, steal our time, steal our purpose,
Mhm.
but it's also things that are causing this distortion like
Mhm.
human trafficking,
Mhm.
child trafficking. And people may think
Mhm.
that, oh, it's not that big of a deal looking at porn, but
Mhm.
they are contributing to that industry of
Yes.
trafficking when they're watching
Yeah.
it.
And I would love to just let's
Wow.
peel it back one more layer to social
Okay.
media, because I know even people who consume pornography, they're like, that's not me until it impacts them. And I will tell you the way that it impacts them is sexual arousal dysfunction,
Okay.
because there's so much desensitization in the brain from that high level of dopamine. But let's bring it back down to social media, because that's impacting just about everybody, right? So the idea is, if you're on it doesn't even have to be that long of a social media session these days, you feel depleted and drained,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I
And
can
it goes
attest to
back,
that.
it
Yeah.
goes back to your idea of the story arc of the hike, right? In story arc, the way that shows used to be is like rising action, the climax where the story and the hero's having the most difficult time and then he overcomes it. And then there's falling action.
Yeah.
There's none of that on social media. It's the constant pursuit of like the next clip
Yeah. It
that's
just
gonna
gets higher and
that's
higher
gonna
and
hit.
higher.
It keeps getting higher and higher
Yeah,
and
the cat
higher.
jumping and then the
Uh-huh.
cat talking
Uh-huh.
and then what's
Uh-huh.
the cat gonna do next?
That's exactly right. So, to speak to the solution, part of the solution is curate your feed.
Okay.
Curate your feed.
Okay.
Go in there, and what do I mean by curate?
You can put not interested,
Mhm. You
interested.
can. You
Yeah.
can. You and my son Seamus, he's a really good example of it. He is on TikTok. He is on Instagram. TikTok, he loves TikTok Shop. I will tell you, he's the example of a kid who went from no style to very stylish using TikTok Shop.
Okay.
But I made a trailer for my book, and because it has to do with pornography, I'm like, "Hey Shay, watch my trailer on TikTok." And he's like, "No." I'm like, "What do you mean no?" He's like, "I have my feed perfectly curated."
Okay.
And I love that. It's to his
Yes.
interests. It's people who he's motivated
Yeah.
to, emulate. So that is where I got that idea of curate your feed. Only follow people who motivate you to create the life that you want, the
Mm-hmm.
life for you. People who are
Mm-hmm.
ahead of the journey, right? Who are successfully doing it. So that's one thing, curating your feed. Secondarily, having a digital detox, like look at how much time you're on your phone. You can go into your screen time app. You can actually program your app to only allow you to be on certain apps for a certain amount of time. Do it if you need to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then get out into the real world and identify those things. I call that a dopamine determination activity. Like, where do you get the dopamine from? It's different for all people. Like, I have 2 boxing bags. I love to box. I think
Oh,
boxing's super fun.
really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been doing it a long
Let's
time.
get you boxing out here. I
I
have a
know.
boxing
I
bag.
love it. I really love it. And I have the Fight Camp app. My youngest daughter's going to drive soon. I've been threatening to go up to Title Boxing for community, and I can't wait to. Just can't put it in my lifestyle right now. But the idea is like I make sure I do that, almost every day because I'm working a lot. I'm in front of my screen. I'm in closed focus, like you were talking about before. Tight focus on my screen. So you have to figure out the things that you like to do, but you have to schedule them in. If it's not scheduled, it's not real.
That's a good point. Scheduling it in. You got to make time. You
Mm.
get to make time for the
Yeah.
things that you want to do.
Prioritize it, right?
Yeah, I was talking to someone recently who just got over their whole cancer journey of 5 years of going through chemo and they were just cleared. And it's like they said that during that time, a sick person, all they can think about is being healthy. A healthy person, all they can think about is like what they want more
I
of. And
know.
so it's really also pulling back and being present in this body. My gosh, I have breath in my lungs. I get to sit here and have a beautiful
Mhm.
conversation with
Mhm.
another human who just
Mhm.
flew here from North Carolina, and we're connecting and I'm learning and we're growing and we get to be here right now.
And screens make people lose sight of that. It really does. Um, when you have a chronic illness, not that I want anybody in the whole world to have one, it does give you a shift in perspective. My husband and I joke, it's not even funny, but you have to laugh so you don't cry type of thing. Is that we joke that I've almost died 3 times, but I actually almost died 2 times. And then one time I had the potential. I was diagnosed with cancer myself because I had toxic mold poisoning, which then put the system into survival mode and threat mode. When I found that out, I didn't tell one person because I didn't want any negative juju
Yeah.
on me because I didn't want to have to regulate other people while I was trying to regulate myself. And then I had a near death experience when I gave birth to my last daughter.
Wow.
Had the full blown, had to be transported by ambulance type of thing. But my point about that is it gives you renewed perspective.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Hell yeah.
I want every person to have, I don't want them to have a deathbed experience, but I want them, and I practice this exercise every day. On my deathbed, will I regret saying yes or no? Even if it scares me, right? That's courage. You can
Yeah.
only exercise courage in the face of fear. That is the
Right.
beauty of it.
It's so
So
beautiful.
I try to choose the road less traveled and always going towards my highest potential.
I love that. So let's get into understanding this EEG.
Mhm.
Tell us, how does this work? Can we have one of these devices at home so we
Mhm.
can read our own brain?
You
I mean,
can.
I would love to be able to see my
Uh,
brain and be like, what's happening when I'm, in this
you
compulsion
need
with
one.
social
I should have brought
media?
you one. I don't make them. I partner with the manufacturer, but everybody needs one. Just a really quick story on that. Like years ago, one of my kids, when they were in elementary, I forget, I think Obama was president. It was that long ago. They were asked if the president could do one thing, what could he do that would really improve humanity? And my child asked me, and I'm like, everybody should have EEG because
Yeah.
everybody would become more regulated.
Okay.
Anger would go down, irritability would go down, abuse would go down, relationship issues, like focus would go up, anxiety would be gone, depression.
This all
So
sounds so
they
good.
all
Like,
of
we need to know more.
trauma, all of those things are identified neurological dysregulation
Okay.
patterns, dysfunction in the brain.
Okay.
So the technology that I use, I have my own app, Dr. Trish Leigh app, and
We'll put it in the show
I
notes.
use a device which is a headband, and you can also find that at drtrishleigh.com. The device itself isn't fully utilized in the way that I use it, so I made a web page. It's not directly on my website, but if you Google Dr. Trish Leigh headband, it comes up and it explains all the neurological benefits from the
Okay.
way that I think about it. But essentially, it reads your brain performance pattern, and there are 5 primary speeds that our brain uses. And to keep it simple so that people can understand it, it's kind of like driving a car, right? So I want everybody's brain to work like an automatic transmission.
Yes, please.
That's what circadian rhythms are. So if your brain's working like an automatic transmission with these speeds, you wake up each day calm and alert,
Okay.
ready to rock and roll. You feel calm, but engaged in your life, right? And then if you need to focus, you can. If you need to deeply concentrate, you can. If something very stressful happens, right? If a bear jumped in here on us right now, we would have fight or flight. That's the stress response that's out of control right now in society. People are in micro fight or flight from their screens all the time, and I can come back
Mm,
to that. But it's essentially in an automatic transmission, your life's flowing. You can access flow state.
okay.
EEG can see that. And using that headband, it shows you if you're using too much fatigue, if you're using the brain pattern of not being able to focus, if you are using the brain pattern for excessive stress or anxiety, stress activation, if you're using the brain pattern for dopamine dependency. So we can see it in technology. And I think everybody should know how their brain is working.
Absolutely. You're selling me this. Okay, so let me understand this better. So we can put on a headband. How long do we need to have it on? And what kind of feedback and data is it
Mhm.
giving us?
Sure. So when people work with me directly, the first thing I do is called a QEEG brain map. We take a brain map. It's the map. It basically shows the levels in every area of your brain, how much dysregulation there is. And it's an eye-opening experience for people. They love the brain map. So that it looks at baseline function. Then when you use the app, essentially you can see how your brain is responding to your life in real time, how it's shifting those gears. So what you can see is if you're like a manual transmission, if you're stuck in overdrive, if you're stuck in braking, if you're stuck in neutral, which is depression, which is sexual arousal dysfunction. But when people work with me, I set the system for 30-minute sessions,
Okay.
not a million minutes, right? And then as
Sounds
people,
doable.
it is totally doable. And if it's not, I can modify it because I do work with a lot of peak performers. They're like 30 minutes, no way. I'm like, okay, fine, 15 minutes for you. And sometimes it's not even length, it's about frequency of bringing your brain back to that regulated state. But using my app, I have a wealth of data. I can see, so like today, I could see if you, hopefully, we're having a wonderful experience. We do have more healthy dopamine flowing. I can see that your brain's in a more relaxed state. But if 3 days ago you had a really stressful experience and you did a session, I could see that you had a stress spike. So when I work with clients, I'm like, I see you had a stress spike last Tuesday. What's going on? Then if they had a relapse into pornography or a slip, I say, I
You
can
can see
see,
it.
I can.
So if they're only doing 30 minutes,
Mhm.
you're seeing what's been going on for the last couple of days, or how does that work?
You can, yeah. So you can see it in real time, but again, like unless you're Buddha, if you're dysregulated, your baseline is pretty much your baseline. It ebbs and flows in each direction a little, but
Okay.
you can't fully regulate yourself, right?
Okay.
Like the Buddha can.
So when you put it on, it's going to show just like kind of your norm.
Yeah.
And then where you are in
And then it
that
changes,
moment.
and you can see in my app, I always joke that the brain maps are my second favorite thing. They're amazing. They're so cool to be able to look at. But my very favorite thing is the progress visualization over time. You can see your brain changing over time. You can see you started with very high stress activation and that it decreased over the last month.
Wow.
And then you know what that does? That really gets the snowball effect of confidence and consistency. People feel better, they see the data.
Okay.
And then they're like, I can do this, you know, because I feel better. I see my brain's more regulated. It motivates people to work out more, to go get the dopamine from their life, stay off their screen. In my program, first, I call it regulate first. Regulate your brain first. Then I offer a digital program, which I consider it's like a nutrition program. If you're trying to get your body fit, you have to work out.
Yeah.
Then you do have to address your nutrition. So the digital program is like the nutrition. It's all the behavioral change, all the things
Okay.
we're starting to talk about.
So the headband helps you see where you're at. Does it also treat?
It does.
Okay. And
It
how does it
does.
do that?
So it does that using something called operant conditioning. We were talking about brains are conditioned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Operant conditioning is one of the coolest things that people don't understand. We're always learning through feedback,
Okay.
right? We're always learning through feedback. So basically, what the system does is it reads how your brain is performing and it will provide audio and video feedback if your brain is hitting the markers that I've set in the app.
Okay.
I've set it to the optimal pattern based on what you need. It's just like a personal trainer would give you the exercises that you need at the proper weights,
Okay.
the number of repetitions. The app, in conjunction with me, does that.
Okay.
So the idea is you do your workout, right? And then it basically is giving you the feedback. So the idea is if you work out with weights, like what is the weight? The weight is doing the work, right? It's providing the feedback. If you want to get strong, you don't have to go to a therapist and like talk to them forever about how you get bigger biceps. You just need a set of weights that is adjustable and you start repping the 20-pound weights. When it gets light, you switch it out for 30-pound weights. The app does that. Isn't it
Oh, okay.
amazing? That's what
Okay.
operant conditioning is. It's reinforcement at the proper level to keep you moving forward. And so when people work out, they're basically doing that with weights. And the app is dynamic, it does it for you.
So let me understand this better. So you take this headband, you get this feedback, and then do you put the feedback in the app and then it tells you what your exercise
It's
is from
all
there?
automatic. The only thing you have to do, and I know this is ironic, when you're using the app, the only thing you have to do is stream.
Oh, okay.
The app is built with all streaming services. So it is a way that you can use your technology. I always tell people use the app as the reinforcement. Of course, don't stream anything that's hypersexualized, but it has streaming services in it. It has games, audio, and basically what you're watching doesn't matter. It is the auditory and the visual feedback. So basically, the way that it works is the screen plays bright and the audio plays louder when you're hitting the marks, when your brain is
Mm.
getting stronger. And then if your brain goes back to that dopamine seeking mode, the audio goes lower, dim,
Ah,
and
to
the
get your
screen, it
attention?
does. So
Okay.
salience is the most important thing at the beginning of the program. It's a passive treatment modality, but that's why it works.
Okay.
I always tell people, I don't even want you thinking about it. The more you think about it, basically the more you're kind of fighting it. But then, of course, I graduate people to using it in a more active way so they can self regulate.
Yeah. We're living in a world where this whole term of nervous system regulation and even like everyone having ADD, ADHD is such a huge
Mhm.
conversation, right? And what it sounds like you're talking about is there's actually an exercises we can do to help our brain become healthier
Mhm.
instead of just taking a pill and saying, "Oh, I've got ADD. I need to
Mhm.
take this
Yeah.
medication to whatever, numb myself out, slow
Mhm.
myself down, give myself more energy."
Mhm.
Or
Yeah,
Or there's like there's no hope.
I always say that medication is a Band-Aid. You're a
Mhm.
bandage. You're bleeding out, you need a bandage, right?
Yeah.
But do you want to have to put a bandage on for the whole rest of your life, especially
Mhm.
if the gash is large, the dysregulation in your brain? That's why I want people to have a brain map so they can see how big that cut is. Or EEG is kind of like an x-ray for your brain, right? If you have a broken leg, you need to x-ray it to know how
Yeah.
big that break is, where it is, and what you need to do to set it.
So you talked about a brain map. So is that something up with that someone has to go into your office and do?
No, they can do it from home.
They can do it
With
from
the
this headband.
wearable headband. So I
Okay.
partnered with the headband and the software company. Now I work with people in many countries. If you have a stable Wi-Fi, because there are people who reach out who don't have stable Wi-Fi. Yeah, I could work with people all over the world. But just to address one thing too is that the app, or I'm sorry, the headband that I partner with the manufacturer, that's that webpage that I was telling you about Dr. Trish Leigh headband. It does come with its own app. The manufacturer of the headband has its own app with one universal protocol.
Okay.
So I would love for everybody to start there.
Yeah.
And you can read about that on my website. But for most people with significant dysregulation, the gap is too big.
Mhm.
And going back to the medication piece too, is that, I consider medication to be the bandage. What I actually want people to do is when they work with me in my app, it's like stitches. I'm able to identify, how big that gap is and then stitch it using that feedback.
Okay.
And then in the end, their brain performance pattern is optimized. So there's no need for the medication. And just one other comment about that too, what you were saying about ADHD and anxiety. There are scientific studies, and there's a whole book on it now that shows that there is a direct correlation in the rise of screen use and the rise of ADHD and anxiety.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I see it in myself.
Yeah.
Like the more that I use the phone, the more I'm anxious and that's not my personality.
Right.
Like I don't have an anxious personality, but
Right.
I notice as I'm like, oh my gosh, with the AI and stuff, we got to keep up with this and do that. And like you're
Mhm.
on your computers, you're on your phone. I'm like, wow, I feel anxious.
Yeah, that's what I call strained brain. That's one of
Whew.
the primary patterns that I see. Strained brain is a brain that is running too fast and too slow. So you feel wired and tired. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what screens do. And then
Yeah.
the other pattern I call drained brain. That's that stuck in neutral pattern that a person feels unmotivated, low key or high key depressed, and has erectile dysfunction or sexual arousal dysfunction.
Hmm.
For the first time in history, people are having less sex than ever.
That's what I'm
Uh,
hearing. Like even countries like,
Sextinction.
what is it, Japan, they're saying people aren't having children as much. And because people are getting addicted to having sex with themselves
That's it.
and they don't have to connect with another human. They don't have to, whatever
Mhm.
you said, like a
Mhm.
lot of men think of it as performing
Mhm.
instead of a connection,
Mhm.
that oxytocin, that serotonin, those feelings that
Mhm.
come with that IRL in real life connection that you don't really get.
Yeah.
Are you just getting mostly dopamine when
Yeah,
you're
it
looking at?
becomes I actually just made some videos on YouTube about it where basically you're creating a self-referential loop. Like you're only referring to yourself in a sexual situation.
That doesn't
Right?
sound good.
Wild. No, no, it's a loop. Like,
Yeah.
and then it's supposed to be relational. And
Yeah.
then you're supposed to learn about yourself from your relationships. Our relationships, as challenging as they can be, they're the greatest gift to figure yourself out.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. They're a
So
mirror.
you are. So when you have a loop, speaking of AI, you've probably experienced that with your chat. My chat, I can't ask him for directions without him telling me which route's going to be the calmest for my nervous system. I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, just give me
Mine talks about hydration the whole time.
yeah,
Well, this like really relates to your hydration.
exactly, right? So it's like, dude, just give me the directions. But that's a self-referential loop. Like I'm always getting the
The
answers that
same
I
feedback.
primed.
Yeah.
So it's a
Mm,
feedback loop. That's exactly what
interesting.
my work is all about, feedback loops.
Okay.
So, yep.
All right, you guys, if you haven't already gotten the Hydrate book, let me tell you why this book is so special. First of all, it took me about 4 years to complete this book, but I made it so that you could put it on your coffee table, give it as a gift to the person that has everything, and it pretty much fits into every decor. I go through my 9 pillars of health and I really make science fun and playful. So you can open it to any page, get inspiration, and learn some deep science in a fun and playful way. I highly suggest this as a gift to the person that has everything. This is exciting. Okay, so couple questions here. So the headband sounds amazing. I'm definitely going to try that. We need to connect on that. But what if somebody is like, look, I don't want to buy a device. Just give me some advice on how I can start upgrading my life and enjoying real life and getting away from this phone compulsion, because there's a lot of shame behind it, especially when it comes to pornography. There's so much shame. And anybody that I've talked to that has like been on that road, it's like they don't feel good about themselves. They don't want to be doing it. They know they're wasting their time. They know it's not good for them, but they find enjoyment out of it,
Yeah,
and
they
it
don't even
numbs them
at a
out.
certain point they don't even find, and that is the essence of a compulsion. So just to frame it too, and this goes back to social media, but especially pornography, is that it develops, right? We already talked about how it develops from a very young age.
Yeah.
Brains develop until they're 28 in young
Oh,
men,
wow.
25 in young women,
Wow.
28 in men. So basically, if someone finds their phone or pornography at the age of 8, we've got 20 years of miswiring developmentally. There's a whole, body of work on it in terms of maladaptation. The brain basically is wired in the wrong direction toward the screen for dopamine instead of toward their life. That's why it's so difficult for people. But you can use your mind and your body. And it might be a struggle. And that's why the technology is so important for people who really can't use their mind and their body to rewire. But the idea is you have to unwire the need for dopamine.
Okay.
And if you have a decades long, habit, then you do have to unwire it and get yourself going back in your real life. Use the screen time app. Get blockers, get pornography blockers. Get my son Declan uses Screen Zen. He's been using it just by himself so he doesn't go. He knows Instagram is a click hole for him. He's so cute. He just went to Japan and he like posted a video about going to Japan. And the next morning he's like, Ma, I got sucked in. I was up till 2 o'clock. Like, one time he knows he's like, I'm not posting anything. You know what I mean? Because
Wow.
he's like, my time's too valuable. I don't want to be sucked into that. And he was
Mhm.
telling me the reels that he got sucked into. I'm like, they're designed to do that to you, but
Yeah.
it's not, you can know better, right? So my point is like, it's not even about pleasure at a certain point. It's about the habit loops and the feedback loops. So the number one thing is to, if you have to put blockers on, put blockers on. If you don't, curate your feed and balance your life. Put it into your Google Calendar when you're going to go on your phone. Set
Mhm.
the alarm. When the alarm goes off, get out of the app, right?
Mhm.
Back into your life. Set those goals for your life. Small ones if it's difficult, right? If you haven't played violin in 10 years, you put in your calendar for 15 minutes to dust off your violin on day 1. Day 2, tune the strings. Day 3, play for 15 minutes. And it's about starting to, I call it a pleasure pathway reset in your brain and in your life. It's about taking those pathways that are going in the wrong direction and slowly but surely flipping them back into the life that makes your life a full life.
Yeah, going back to what we started with, how you talked about the dopamine being like in real life a 1 to a 10, and then this surreal, ultra reality being 11 plus.
Unreality,
How
honestly.
unreal. How do we move from that where it's like you're just so drawn to it because
that
it is the higher dopamine level, and how do you practically go,
I know that is why, it's not me selling devices or services. I want people to know, if you've tried everything, because I hear this all the time, the tech really can do it for you. Like the tech can rewire your brain for you. So for many people, they're not going to be able to use their mind
okay,
and body. But the more things you do, the better, right? Like if you start working out a little at a time, if you start eating better. And that's my point about that flywheel getting into motion is, you know how this is. If you work out on Monday, like you don't want a bag of chips Monday night.
yeah,
You choose something healthier, and
yeah,
then you go to bed earlier because you worked out, and then you wake up earlier, and it becomes these small things that
yep.
add up significantly. So if you can get the ball rolling, it's making sure that you put it into your schedule, you do it consistently, you do it frequently. But we do have to talk about one other thing: Stress.
Okay.
Stress is the number one thing that is going to teeter a person just right back into the screen. People get stressed and then they'll go on their screen or they'll consume pornography. Then they feel terrible. So then they'll have a drink to offset the feeling. Then they'll, go out and stay out till 2. So I have a lot of cheesy sayings. I always say there's no such thing as a horizontal spiral. You're either in an upward spiral or a downward spiral.
Mm.
I want people to get out of the downward spiral, get into the upward spiral, and then learn how to keep themselves there.
That's probably the hardest part, where you're in the downward and then changing that trajectory to the upward, like that
I tell
portion right
people
there.
all the time, my work is designed to stop your downward spiral and to get you moving into the upward spiral. That's the unwire, rewire, and then begin to hardwire the brain. And then I do help people springboard them into using the tech by themselves so they can maintain and keep that hardwire going.
Okay. So how does that look? They do like a private coaching with you or a program
Yeah, I
or
have a program. It's on my website. So I have a neuroregulation program. Thankfully, I'm the largest provider in the world, and I am blessed with probably the highest knowledge and skills, especially when it comes to screens. So the program that I offer is 6 months long. It's not a lifetime long. That's why I want people to know if you've been caught in this for a lifetime and you're frustrated and you think nothing's going to help you, I am telling you this technology and my program specifically can help you. I want people to know that you can be helped. But then you start training your brain at home. You sit in a comfortable chair, you make 30 minutes or less, and you let the technology do the work for you.
okay.
And then,
So you're like watching a
uh-huh,
movie or you're
mhm,
scrolling or
mhm,
doing something and
mhm,
it's reading your brain
mhm.
and interacting with it.
It's interacting with your brain and teaching it. For people to understand and for you to understand, I think it's really cool. You can look it up. I'm sure it's probably still there. There's a YouTube video of a psychology class where they taught their professor to always go to the right side of the stage, because anytime he was on the right side, they would look up and take notes and nod and engage with him. Anytime he moved to the left, they'd all disengage, no take notes. And so they literally conditioned him through operant conditioning to stand on the right side of the stage. And then the next time they teach him, he doesn't know either. He's being unconsciously conditioned to stand on the right, and the next class stand on the left. Like, people don't understand, they're allowing their screen to condition them to the strained brain and drained brain
Mm,
without knowing it. That's why self-awareness is so important. But then secondarily, you can use technology instead to train you in the direction of your dreams.
yeah.
I want people to live their dream life. It is there for the taking. They just have lost sight of it and they're not doing the things they need to chase it down.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. That whole point of so many people, every person on this planet has been born with some sort of dream or like, oh, I'd love to do this or go here or be this person and aspire to something. And in this culture and society, it feels like a lot of the screens are robbing us of that and we're allowing that to happen. So I love that you have tips and a program of how to change this. I would love to hear, like, you've worked with so many people, some stories, like, share with me the trajectory of someone's life, that where they started at and where they are now, so people can see how doing this work can change your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so amazing. And I have to tell you too, I've used this technology myself. I have the data on my brain. Years ago, I walked twice as fast. I talked twice as fast. Like, I was up here. And then all the stress levels came down, and they've been down for a decade. It's such a gift to be regulated. It really is. But for my clients, typically they know they are pulled back to the screen, whether it be pornography proper, I always call it, whether it be social media that's hypersexualized, whether it be just social media in all kinds of forms, even YouTube. I work with a lot of people who they feel totally pulled back to YouTube all the time. That pull is the problem, right?
Mm,
Gaming, I have clients, but the client journey usually looks like this, and I really love it, is that they come to the awareness, or their partner makes them sometimes. They come to the awareness that this is getting in the way of their work and their relationships and their life. They realize that. And then they call me And the first step is a consultation with me. I've kept it that way, where even though it's a lot of work for me, because I know people have never told their story to anybody else, so I want to make sure it's a safe space.
Okay.
They can tell me their story. They tell me their story, and then, then they move forward in the program, start training their brain, and they feel the difference. The pull to the screen dies down at first,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't entirely go away until that second piece where they're rewiring back into their life. um, I always joke with people that it includes increasing your emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
As a parent of 5 children, the things that go down in my home, which they go down in every home and every family, but like I can stay in all of those things. My kids can tell me anything because they know I can handle it and I will help them. I won't shame them.
Mm,
That's you need
I love
you
that.
need neurological regulation to be able to have the self-regulation.
Okay.
Your kid does something. One of my children just got a ticket for 110 miles per hour, which is the new family record. It was 109 for my other son. And I joked, like, I joked that with my youngest daughter, I'm like, I'm going to wait probably till I'm like 75 and I'm going to rip past a police officer at 111. Because by then I won't care and I'll have the
Yeah.
family record. But the idea is, my son calls me, he's devastated, he's
Mm-hmm.
filled with shame. And I'm like,
Mm.
I really hope that it has saved your life. I believe that. Like that experience is going to
Yeah.
teach him from a young age not to drive that fast, even if it's dark and nobody's looking. Like it's going to help him. But they can call me. They call me about all the things. I'm neurologically regulated, which means I'm emotionally regulated.
Yes.
And so, this is the journey that
They're not
people have.
afraid you're going to fly off the handle or
Exactly.
how's she going to react.
And I can communicate.
Mm-hmm.
So the another piece is communication. A lot of people are not able to communicate their needs, they're not able to communicate their feelings. And I know these things feel basic, maybe to, feel basic to discuss. Communication's a huge issue in relationships, in families. My youngest daughter, Saoirse, she said it the other day. She's like, "We Lees, we're doing pretty good, like, dealing with difficult stuff, communicating about it,
Yeah.
not sweeping things under the rug as a family." But
That's
this
a
is the
huge thing,
journey, like, the
communication.
men I work with in particular, they go back to their partners, and I tell men, you don't have to tell your partner about if you have a pornography addiction, but you should bring them into your life journey a little. They don't need to know specifics, but if you're keeping a whole thing that you struggle with from your life partner, like what's the point, right? That's supposed to be your life partner.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to sexuality, like, communicating with your partner what you like and getting back on the same page. Or even
Yeah.
I've been married 24 years and we're entering into a new season. Our youngest will be out of the house in 3 years. And, I've said to my husband, I'm like, I'm going to want to travel more. And I actually see myself like half living somewhere else. But we have a brick and mortar practice that he works in. So I'm like, I totally want you to come. Like, I can't make him figure out how to transition out of his office, but I can tell him my goals and let him know like I am going to do that, and so inspire him to figure out what his goals are so we can be on the same page or respect each other's goals.
Yeah.
Like hardly any couples are doing that, right?
Yeah, but it takes communication,
It does.
right? And that's a huge thing because there is this thing that almost everyone has where it's like, what if I say that? How's this person going to
Hmm.
react? And, fear can get in the way of
Hmm.
communicating what you really want. And that's beautiful how you communicated. And I really am seeing this whole kind of transition of when you were talking about people's lives and not wanting to be in the real life, or it's not as like exciting, the dopamine part of it, then, well, why is that? Because a lot of it is about connection. We're made to connect, we're
Hmm.
made for purpose. And we are not trained in school how to communicate. We're given the feeling words. We aren't trained how to work through difficult situations. And
Hmm.
so many children grow up to be adults reacting in the same way that they did as a child. I'm going to throw a tantrum, but maybe the tantrum just looks a little different.
Uh,
Or I'm just going to shut you out and hope that you notice,
hmm.
or however
Hmm.
it's
Yes.
however somebody responds.
Hmm.
So I love what you're talking about with communication, and I know that's a whole nother topic, but it's
Yeah, well,
something good to
it's
bring up.
interesting. My husband, a while ago, thankfully, I don't remember what he did. Like, well, to speak to stress responses, and I don't remember what it was about, but my husband's stress response, we all have stress responses. I write about them in my book. So my husband's is fight. So if he's stressed out, he yells, right? My stress response is flight. I'm out the door, or I fawn. I'm going to make everything okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that about myself until I increased my emotional intelligence. I'm looking at myself. I'm like, girl, what are you doing dancing around? Like, so I said to my husband, I'm never being yelled at again. I
Mm.
got really good at being yelled at, but not like taking it on and having boundaries. But then I had this realization as my emotional maturity improved. I'm a little ahead on the journey than he is. He would say that too. So one day he said, he goes, I learned how to react that way when I was a child. And I said, food for thought, babe. That's a childish response,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
He's like, that's what I did when I was a kid. I yelled and then everybody forgave me and we moved on. I'm like, I know, but that's no longer acceptable in this relationship.
Okay,
And I'm
good.
like, I love you. It took a little, he was really cute talking about like, one day he's like yelling and I'm like, that or he was about to yell. I could see it on him. I'm like, I will not be yelled at. And I already told him what the boundary was if he yelled at me again. And he walked away and went downstairs and I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is so weird right now. He's doing nothing, and he comes up and he goes, do you know how much energy it took me to not yell? But now he doesn't have to exercise. This is the journey. This is
Yeah.
what my
He's
clients,
rewiring his
he
brain.
is, he
Yeah.
is through his behaviors, but you have to have enough neurological regulation to do that.
Yeah.
And that's why, for your viewers, I encourage them to think, do you get angry? Do you get irritable? Do you shut down? Are you avoidant? These are not your personality traits. These are signs
They're
of
adaptations.
they're your
Yeah.
maladaptations. And when it comes to self-actualization, I really think of my work as helping people self-actualize. If you know Maslow's
Mm-hmm.
work, Maslow's hierarchy, it's in my book too. Um, we're all stuck. Most people are stuck down in the lowest level of Maslow's pyramid, and
Mm.
pornography and screen time keeps people stuck there through this distorted survival mode, right?
Wow.
Like you're just you're in threat detection mode. And if you think about scrolling in and of itself, it's the hunt.
Yeah.
Like it is a survival mechanism. You're on the hunt. It keeps your brain in strain brain, which is a survival mechanism. Self actualization requires thrival mode. It requires you to rise above those levels and to be able to have enough control and enough self reflection to, this goes back to the identity fragmentation, to go, who am I? You said people have a unique innate ability in them. What is it that I want to do and contribute and enjoy? And then go do it.
What would you say to the people that don't even know that? Because you mentioned that in the
Mhm,
beginning of
mhm,
this conversation, that a lot of people don't even know what they like to do.
mhm,
They can't even connect
mhm,
with
mhm.
those things that get them excited.
You might need a washout period. And I know no one wants to hear that. Like, I really don't recommend full washout periods for the vast majority of people. But if you're really stuck, you really can't, curate your feed and balance your screen time. You really can't. Or if you just feel awful and your life trajectory is so far off from what you want, or you don't feel well, then a washout period is highly recommended. I tell people curate your feed and get off for 30 days.
Okay.
30 days, the fog's going to clear. The fog will clear,
Mm.
and then it's about going back in a balanced way. Many of my clients choose not to go back on social media because of the night and day feeling, and they know they cannot balance it because of what it does. There's a transcription factor in the brain called delta phos-B. I don't know if you know about this one. It's kind of like concrete when it comes to addiction, concrete on the neural pathways. This is why they say, like, an alcoholic can't just have one drink once they recover, and delta phos-B is involved in it. It basically, like, those neural pathways are going to light up more than another person who never had that challenge. So a lot of the people I work with, they test their fortitude along their recovery journey, and then they know the balance that they need to strike as the foundation of that self-actualized lifestyle.
Are some people more preconditioned, or they're born genetically with more delta phos-B, or how does that work?
I don't love to use the word genetic either. I know, like, okay,
Epigenetic? I don't know.
yeah, well, epigenetics amazing, right? And if you
Yeah.
know about the body of work on epigenetics, I like to use the word familial.
Yeah.
So there's nature, nurture, and navigation. Again, I talk about it in my book. Nature's basically, brains don't fall far from the tree. But epigenetics, I talk about in my book too, because there's a body of literature, especially when it comes to like more holistic types of therapies. And I put it in quotes is because holistic is just helping your system heal from the inside out. That is regulation, right? But there's a body of literature that says we can rise above our genes by activating them in a different way. That's the nurture, that's the navigation, navigating life differently in an environment that serves you.
Okay. Wow. Let's
And
navigate it
and
differently.
I can tell you, I have 5 brothers and sisters and my parents. I've seen their brains. And I've always like thought of myself as the black sheep, but I've been working on this for a long time. My brain is 180 degrees different than my entire family's. And
Really?
I'm 180 degrees different than my family because, not in a negative way, but I do have, a different trajectory of going out there and trying to chase down the life that I want and
Yeah.
not getting sucked into uh negativity and those types of things.
Yeah. It's a life you've chosen for yourself.
Mhm.
But we did speak about this too, where it feels like some people don't feel like they even have that choice because the compulsion is so
Mhm.
strong. And some people are even conditioned as children where it starts that young. So that can be really hard. And for anybody listening, I love that you have some tools and you've got tips on how to change that. And it's when we start to have compassion for ourselves, right? Having compassion and asking those questions instead of shaming.
I
Because
love it.
if you keep
Hmm.
shaming yourself, why did I do that? I'm not good at this. I messed up again.
Hmm.
Chances are you're not going to change.
No, I love that. It's all about compassion and empathy for yourself and for others. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of the people I work with have experienced trauma or abuse, and especially sexual abuse in my line of work. And I tell people, I'm like, you think you didn't like me talking about communication? Let's talk about forgiveness. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Forgive yourself for the things you've done in the past. Forgive the people who have wronged you. You know the saying, I'm sure, hurt people hurt people. So, like, no person wants to wrong or hurt another person. That's a dysregulated person. And the bigger the hurt, the larger the dysregulation. When you see it from that standpoint, you can have compassion for people,
Yes.
you can have empathy for people. I love the idea that all of our cells regenerate every 7 years. They do it at different rates, but so I tell people, you of 7 years ago, that's not you of right now. Forgive that version. Understand where you were at then.
Mm-hmm.
Even you of yesterday, like this conversation will change the both of us.
Mm-hmm.
The us of an hour from now, we will be different
Yeah.
fundamentally. So if you put yourselves into situations where you're always growing, you can look back at the version that yelled at your child or cut somebody off in traffic and go, you know what? That's what he or she had to do back then, but that's not what I have to do now. And then you choose differently. It allows you to choose differently.
I love that. That's, I think, where we can end is like choosing differently. And just one last quick question. What what is one belief that you've carried for a long time that you no longer believe to be true anymore?
Mm-hmm. That's a great one. I love the Enneagram. Do you know the
Oh
Enneagram
yeah,
person? I
yeah.
love the Enneagram, and I'm a 5. I'm a thinker, but I still carry around, and it comes out when I'm stressed. I carry around the idea of avarice, right? Like scarcity mindset, which I absolutely got from my parents and my siblings still embrace. But scarcity mindset doesn't serve anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I force myself into abundance mindset all the time. Plenty of more where that came from. Even when it comes to money, it's not my money, it's God's money, right?
Yeah.
Like the money's not mine. And I have conversations all the time when you stay in that mode of like flow state and that it will be provided for you if you have faith and if you trust and if you stay on purpose. You don't have to stress all those small things. But so I released scarcity like as a fundamental a really long time ago. And then when it tries to creep in, you know what I do, right? I go buy something. I do, because the way that I know, and I'm not materialistic really at all. I force myself to care more about material things. But one of my ways I know I'm becoming more stressed out is the kids know it's a family joke now that I go on a spending freeze. But like
Ah,
nothing's changed financially. It's
yeah.
just my internal state is getting more stressed,
Scarce.
scarce.
Yeah.
So then I go on a spending freeze. And the minute I feel spending freeze, I'm like, nope, I've got to reduce my schedule so I have more time, scarcity of time.
Yeah.
I have more energy, more rejuvenation, and go buy something that, nurtures my soul so that I tell scarcity, no way, man, not today.
I love that. Well, thanks for being here, Trish.
Yeah,
We're
of
going to
course, my
put
pleasure.
all of the links to this headband and your book in the
Awesome.
show notes so that if anybody listening wants to know more about that, you're welcome to check it out.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.